Yes, I am here to tell you that your beloved surrealist painter, Salvador Dali, was a fascist. He was a disgusting necro and a literal scatological fascist. Dali is an artist that the dictator himself, Francisco Franco, called the greatest hero of Spain. I know what you might be thinking. We don't think of Dali as a political artist. You know him as the kooky artist at the helm of the surrealist movement, a movement very much linked to left wing political ideologies, a movement to which the executed poet Garcia Lorca also contributed with his literary work. And I'm really sorry that I'm breaking your bubble. I really am. It is hard to look at your idols and realize they might have been a horrible person. But honestly, Mami, by now you should expect that the shiny legacy of famous artists will, statistically speaking, face their demise.
Hey, what's up? So, this is a excerpt of the video about celebrities and activism, but it ran too long, so I decided to make a separate video for only Salvador Dali and Orwell. That's why it might look a little bit disjointed.
Picasso's demise in the general public imaginary came during the Me Too era, when the stand-up comedian Hannah Gadsby eviscerated the legacy of the late artist and exposed his misogyny and the misogyny of the culture, who would so readily discard his female victims in order to protect the legacy of an abuser. And I think it's time we examine Dali's legacy. Dali had explicit political views in support for fascism and in support for fellow mustache wearer Hitler. But his inclinations did not just stay hidden in the private space. He did produce political art, but because it was not against the status quo of the Franco regime, because he was pro-fascism and admired that other mustache guy, we do not think of him as a political artist. And even though surrealists at the time explicitly expelled him from their circles, we still regard him as the helm of the surrealist art movement because the general public is not so readily acquainted with his political views. But in fact, Dali did produce fascist art, period, point blank. But because of the reasons mentioned, that inconvenient fact is never linked to the description of the art itself. Instead, his paintings are still hung in the halls of liberal arts institutions, and we still consume popular cultural references to Dali in a positive way. His legacy has been that his art was shocking and thought-provoking, but never has it been that his art was political. His art was not disruptive to the Franco regime. It molded itself comfortably in the contrived, hostile environment of fascism, and it thrived in it. Many art historians do hesitate in saying that he was fascistic because he called himself apolitical. Nevertheless, he would also say that Hitler turned him on in the highest, or long live Franco. He perfected a doublespeak that would allow him to socialize with most of his contemporary left-leaning surrealist artists and to be at the same time exalted by the fascist dictatorship, Franco. Maybe at this point you might be thinking, but Andrea, how is it possible that I did not know about Dali's inclinations? Surely someone should have said something before. Why was I so woefully ignorant? Well, fret not, my eager grasshopper. There is a conception that call-out culture has only emerged in the social media realm. However, Salvador Dali was called out and dragged for his views in a scathing essay by none other than George Orwell himself. Yes, that George Orwell, author of legendary dystopian literary works like Animal Farm or 1984. After reading Dali's shocking autobiography, Orwell wrote Benefit of Clergy, Some Notes on Salvador Dali. In this essay, he explored one of the pillar themes that analytical philosophy of art theory has explored in the past few decades. And that is, should art that is immoral be considered as art? Should the character of an immoral artist influence the criticism of their work? And whether ethical criticisms has any space in the controversies that philosophy of art explores. Orwell wrote, if it were possible for a book to give a physical stink of its pages, this one would. A thought that might please Dalí, who before wooing his future wife for the first time, rubbed himself all over with an ointment made out of goat's dung boiled up in fish glue. But against this has to be said the fact that Dali is a draughtsman of very exceptional gifts. He is also, to judge by the minuteness and the sureness of his drawings, a very hard worker. He is an exhibitionist and a careerist, but he is not a fraud. In the world of art, these two artists repel one another like oil and water. One wrote Animal Farm and 1985, artworks faithfully against any type of totalitarianism. Orwell fought against fascism during the Spanish Civil War. The other artists gleefully accepted Franco's fascism and openly praised Hitler. He made artworks inspired by Hitler, but those artworks were vague enough that the meaning can in fact be derived by whatever spectator is looking at the artwork. For example, Dali's The Enigma of Hitler could represent the decay Hitler was bringing to European society to the eyes of a liberal spectator who is not well versed in Dali's inclinations. Or it could also represent a misunderstood Hitler to the eyes of a neo-Nazi who might list Mein Kampf as one of his favorite books. Both artists produced artworks that are products and reflections of their life facing an increasingly fascist culture. But one was against it, and the other seemed more than gleeful to say that he was fascinated by it. Both artists produced political art, and even if you did not know the political context behind Dali's work, his art was political. And even if it was vague enough, his art was still political. The surrealist movement sought to be disruptive. Dali's work failed to be political disruptive. His works and his view represented the most conservative ideals of the Franco era. His artworks were not really disruptive. They were shocking in a banal way. And the story of Dali and George Orwell is a story repeated through time. Wherever we set our sights to, we will find artists doing artworks in response or against the political climate of their times, regardless of if the artwork aesthetically or philosophically exalts the hegemonic culture of the time or disagrees with it, regardless of the era where the piece of art was produced, whether it's an art piece from ancient Greece or one of early Confucianism during the rule of the Han Dynasty, or whether the piece was created during the French Revolution or during the Cold War. All artworks are produced in political contexts, but some might be indifferent to its political context, or they tacitly exalted the ideas of their times by propping up the hegemonic doctrine of its time. Other artworks are explicitly revolutionary and against the hegemonic views of their time. Let me know what you think of this video. Please like, please subscribe. You don't know how much a subscription means to me. Until next time, remember to be excellent to one another.